Welcome. This is the 116 Life on Holy Cultural Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm here with a very special, important person that y'all need to know if you already don't know. The amazing, the legendary Adam A.T. Thomason, 6'5". He'll dunk on your head. He'll draw you a picture. He'll make you a film. He'll do all that. He'll take you to the weight room and make you be sore for like a whole week straight.
And make my workout partner quit and ghost me.
I mean, clearly, if you're looking at us and you can't hear right now, or if you're watching us on YouTube, sitting next to this guy, his arms and my arm, there's a reason why I quit, because I just couldn't get to where he was at. So I was like,
he was progressive, man.
Little by little. I will say I am steadily back in the gym. I went this morning, so
that's good. No judgment.
Shout out to AT for being very much a leader. But yeah, man, this is definitely good to have you on here. I know we have a lot of like sidebar conversations.
We do
in the office at Reach from day to day. But for the people who don't know, who've been living under a rock, tell the people a little bit about yourself. What brought you here? Just your trajectory on the 116 Life, how you know Ben and Lecrae. Just give us the whole backstory, man.
Yeah, so real quick, don't want to be long-winded. I met Ben and Lecrae 2003.
Dang.
Yeah, so
that's
20 years.
Day one.
Yeah, day one.
Jeez.
Before the actual first day of day one.
Dang.
So Lecrae was still selling cable. He was still selling cable. And the 116 logo hadn't even been established.
Dang.
And so Ben was moving from Louisiana to connect with Lecrae.
Okay.
To be in the same city on some, hey, we got to be in the same city if we want this to work. And so the technical way I got introduced to Ben is they say, hey man, you do art. This guy, he's looking for somebody to design a logo for something they trying to get off the ground. But he could play basketball too. So we had this inner city hoop league in Denton, Texas.
Crazy.
And they said, Ben's going to show up. You mentioned Ben living above the fray. Now think about this, all the cliches, black dudes tatted up.
Right.
People,
Denton,
face
Texas,
tats.
yeah.
Just like, this league was crazy.
It was
good.
Life.
Yeah, people playing overseas, all this.
You were playing in the league?
I was playing in the league. So we needed one. Ben said he's going to show up. Ben Washer.
You hadn't met Ben at this time?
No.
And you met, and you was suggested to him by Lecrae or who?
Just a mutual friend.
Okay.
Right. So, but this is the first interaction. So Ben comes walking through the door. Dad crew calf socks, New Balances, low cut.
Low cuts.
He had on the Hoochie Daddy shorts before the Hoochie Daddies were in, and a regular tee. And they're like, yo,
he's also 6'6" though.
Listen. I hear that.
You're right.
When you playing against these guys going over, I'm like, what is this man going to bring to the table? Ben put 40 on these dudes' head.
What?
Pump fakes, hook shots, flash, yeah. Thumbs down.
Really?
That's how I met Ben.
And was he like, as he was playing, was he like being, like talking trash?
No.
Or he was just on some like Jokic vibes?
Jokic.
Okay.
Slow-mo,
Just
taking his time. Seeing above the fray, like Ben Washer.
That's kind of how Ben. Do you feel like that embodies how he kind of leads too?
Yeah, just I'm gonna take my time. You're not gonna rush me. And inner city leagues, these guys trying to climb up in, like, oh man, don't we ain't gonna let the white boy kill it. I got him. He like pump fake.
Ah, that's amazing. Shout out Ben Washer, our CEO of Reach Records. The most legendary person in the story of Reach Records, for sure.
So then I met Lecrae at a mutual college group called Plumline on UNT's campus.
You were at UNT at the time?
Yeah, so I was coming out of the fashion industry. I know that's going to be another segue.
Yeah.
I was coming out of the fashion industry. That's my undergrad is in. And I just needed a break, honestly. The fashion industry was crazy. So I needed a break. I went to do this discipleship program in Denton, Texas. Okay. And they said, hey, get connected with this ministry called Plumline.
Okay.
Urban feel. This is in the context of a majority white church.
Okay.
So they're like, we think you would like this.
Okay.
And so Lecrae comes walking through the door, 4X, tall T, loud.
Sure.
with BJ.
Sure.
And you know, they throwing up their version of the one was it, you know.
They had like a gang sign or something?
Yeah, you know, and I was like, bro.
I'm glad that didn't stay. I'm glad that died. Keep the logo, but maybe ditch the sign.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, they're like, yeah, one was it, one was it, yeah, man, yeah. I was like, bro, who are these insecure dudes walking through the door?
You know, confidence is a form of insecurity. Bravado.
And we're like, okay, man, we see you, bro. We see you.
All right.
So that was the introduction.
Okay. So what you met Ben before Lecrae?
I did.
So at this moment, you were they were starting Reach Records. Were you in the mix of that? What was that look like in terms of your involvement or seeing what they were doing?
Yeah. So people got to remember, if y'all probably have to Google this to know the time. It's 2003, so YouTube not there, no social media, Instagram, none of that.
Facebook had just probably, it wasn't what it was now.
It's not what it was.
Okay. It wasn't pervasive,
Yeah, it wasn't pervasive.
Yeah.
And there was, if you were going to do any music, you had to go through the major labels and the gatekeepers. Like Nashville wasn't even doing anything outside of CCM.
That's true.
Like there was no opening.
Right.
So because of KAA and seeing what music had as far as influence on the urban kids, Ben and Lecrae were like, yo, we gotta do an alternative to that music that is culturally relevant. And it has the pristine and the packaging that fits the culture. Now that was new. Cause at the time, even Lecrae would tell you, it's like, man, if I ain't meet Ben, my CDs would be looking like Times New Roman font, bad face. He's like, I'm just trying to get the message out. But Ben was so meticulous. And a lot of people don't give him credit for this. I would say Ben is the godfather in our space of excellent packaging that could sit next to the shelf on anything and go, I don't know what that's saying, but it challenges everything, just visually.
That's phenomenal.
He is the godfather.
That's phenomenal. Even before all of this, he was.
He was. I mean, listen. If you mess with Illustrator, it's a thing called like points and anchors.
Okay.
One of the logos, and I'll try to find it. One of the logos I did, it had like a Back to the Future perspective feel to it. It said 116. And I thought I checked all the kerning to make it look perfect. This brother looked at it just like this, like, man, that anchor's off. I go, what? And then I was like, man, the 1 point was off. This is what he brought to the table.
That's amazing.
For branding. You got to understand
amazing.
that. For branding. So that was Ben. And then obviously Lecrae, he's a catalyzer. He's winsome, magnetic. You know, people want to be around him, things like that. So you put those two together with faith.
Can you say that again?
You put those two together with faith.
Hey, man.
And you got a combination that I feel like God breathed on.
Sure. And you had a hand in the 116 logo?
Yeah, so it's 50-50.
So
but a lot of people don't know that.
Is Ben gonna come for receipts for this? Or?
No, he's not. We talk about it all the time.
Okay, so tell me what you did.
It's in a pervasive, maybe, could be, coming soon documentary where we talk about that.
I love how you worded that. So this is like 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
And you're basically there at the early stages of the Reach Records 116 Unashamed movement.
Yeah.
Tell me what you've seen those first like 5 years and what like because you're essentially like one of their best friends.
Yeah.
Tell me what you've seen happening and what was your take on it? How did you help them make the most of it?
That's good. So Ben Washer and I were roommates.
Say less.
We're roommates. So one of the things that I don't think people know, again, you have to do the research, 2003, right? So none of the social presence is there. You couldn't look up stuff on YouTube to learn it. So either you read it at Barnes & Noble's, you didn't know it, or it's trial and error.
Right.
But one of the things they don't know about Ben, because he gets this like, hey man, white man, owning a hip hop label. But what I've seen from Ben, he came from a very prestigious family, and he said, no, Dad, we not gonna go off of your checks. We gonna pray. I'm gonna write support letters. Ben was eating salmon vertebrae out the can with chips and hot sauce, right? At shows, we praying. We crying for people to come to know the Lord. Freestyling, Deep Ellum, a place.
You're with them doing some of these early.
Yeah.
You're there. You're there the whole time.
The whole time. Like even the office was
in Texas.
Yeah, if you call it that, it was our garage where we lived, and it had the original, double R facing woodcut. Somebody made that for us. And, we shipping stuff to Orlando at that time. So whether it's like, hey, man, we got to get these packages out, or hey, man, we got to go see a guy named Blade at the studio to mix and master stuff. Ben, a lot of people don't know, you may know this, that he had to redesign the Real Talk cover because the designer he got was so terrible. Ben didn't like it. It was a bad design. The mother called him and said, how you going to tell me my baby designed that?
He got chewed out by the designer's mom. That's hilarious.
And he had to redesign it. And that's one of the more classic ones, Lecrae with the joint to the side.
It's screamed like hip hop and like of the time. That's crazy. So AC, you obviously are a man of like many gifts.
Yeah.
I feel like you do so much as a curator, tastemaker, preacher, leader. Tell me about your influence on the 116 Unashamed movement from that time and to now. Like, what have you felt like has developed in a good way that you kind of had some hands in? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I think I will be the friend that maintains the faith and purity.
Sure.
That you originally set out to keep. So, at that time, it when it's not about like record sales or awards, you really do see a like a contrition.
Yeah.
A purity. God, if this person doesn't come to know you and become unashamed, what are we doing? There's nothing else, bro. This is what I'm trying to put.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And you were kind of help, I guess, fanning that flame.
Yeah,
in community.
Yeah, because at that time, I'm there as a friend. Like, I'm not there as a...
You weren't trying to, like, be a part of the...
Not as an employee.
You had so many other things going on.
Yeah. Right? So it's just like, hey, man, you need help with the design? Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, me and Ben going to Barnes & Noble and we reading on good designs can put script and boldness together. So, you know what I'm saying? So we reading on that. All right, bet. But because the cultural element wasn't there, coming back to the faith, reading the scriptures, discipleship, prayer, what are we discipling them? What books should they read? All these things. We just kept vibing on that the entire time.
That's so good. And so, man, like, would you say there were other, clearly there were other groups, artists, collectives, labels that sprung up around that time. And, God obviously does what he does with whatever we give him.
Yeah.
What was a distinctive factor about Reach, or what did, not to say other collectives didn't, but what did you see differently about what you were up close to with Reach Records that maybe just didn't take shape in other collectives?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think Malcolm Gladwell talks about an outlier. And he says, two people can create the same product, but one can release it at a different time.
Ooh.
And that timing, you can't predict. You see what I'm saying? So before Reach, cross movement, I remember looking at the Truce cover and that the Inflame Haffa, and you got the flame. And I remember thinking like, yo, that's good branding. But because the movement of East Coast, boom bap, rappity rap was already, let's just say, coined in the culture, you had a shift now towards the South. Andre, the South got something to say. T.I.
Right.
Cash Money.
Sure.
Right? So now that's rising. You already had a lot of artists in the Christian space who had the East Coast sound, cross movement and the like. But you didn't have artists in the Christian space who had the Southern sound.
Right.
And who had the brand. And
then
you bring, I'm telling you, you bring that passion.
Yeah.
Like, Lecrae is a person to where he'll make you believe I need to walk around in the snow with my shoes off if it'll bring me closer to God. And you're like, bro, I'm gonna get frostbite. It's -20. I'm just telling you, bro. You see what I'm saying? So you mix that, like you put that energy 100% in the faith in God and want people to come to know the Lord. And then you put branding around that. Like at that time, they weren't focused on anything else. And I'm not saying in the sense of like, awards and things like that now or distractions, but I'm saying when you don't have that as an option and all you have is the scriptures, the Holy Spirit, prayer, and then you have a megaphone. Come on, dog.
Oh,
do you see what I'm saying?
Like that combination just led us. God, what I hear you saying is, Reach Records wasn't something that it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't man made.
It was not man made.
It just the Spirit of the Lord went before, and then.
He just chose it. And I even today, I
Yeah.
challenged Lecrae because there's some things that hopefully it'll come out story-wise, an asset that'll tell the story of Reach. And I challenged him. I said, bro, you didn't choose what family you came into. You didn't choose your traumas. And you didn't choose God blessing you to be the face of something you had no plan on being the face of. So I said, a lot of people would try to make things equal, and I go, that's not how God's kingdom works. Now, you may feel eerie because I know you've had attack, and people are like, man, you trying to make it about you, or it's the Lecrae and Lecraettes and stuff like that. But I go, if God poured this favor upon you, trying to change the narrative to act like he didn't, I think it's equally as damaging.
That's super dope, man. We got to put a pin on it, and I think I want to keep this conversation going on the next segment about some of the narratives that you've been shaping, man, and culture and things you've applied your hands to, man. So this is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm here with your man, Adam A.T. Thomason. We'll be right back, y'all. Welcome back. This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio on Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris, here with my man.
A.T.
Hey, man, we just coming off a really dope conversation. Reach Records wasn't man-made.
It was not at all.
We, a lot of prayers, a lot of labor, hard work, and just straight out blessing of the Lord established these things. And I've met you probably about 3 or 4 years ago. Coming out to LA, and one thing I resonated with, even what we just kind of got done talking about, was the Lord going before the gift, and things weren't man-made. I've always felt there's like a genuine spiritual fiber whenever I'm around you. I feel like every time I talk to you, I learn something.
Okay.
Which is super dope, which says a lot about who you are as a person. So, I mean, you're good at so many things, bro. Like, you was in fashion, you played ball overseas, you do films. Where are you now, and why did God choose you to be, like, I guess, dabble in so many different disciplines, and how is God using that in your life, man?
That's good. So part of my story, growing up in Detroit, Michigan, Dad left the home when I was 12. My mom was shot 6 months later. So, 12 from a sociological standpoint is a key age where you need someone giving you rearing. So you take 2 away, you put in Detroit during the crack epidemic, shows like BMF, Black Mafia family.
Yeah, that's real life.
That's real life. So I grew up in that era. So you're trying to navigate the streets, coming into young manhood. And by God's grace, my mom told me I needed to get away from Detroit to become a man. And so I went to the school, Savannah College of Art and Design.
SCAD, the infamous.
SCAD. The only reason I bring that up is SCAD wants you to explore being a person of range.
In what discipline? In fashion, art, or what?
Well, I went in initially. It was funny. I went in initially. I was fortunate to get a full ride portfolio scholarship. They call it a presidential award.
You were smart. You was one of the smart kids.
Well, I just drew well, honestly. So I had dope black and white pencil drawings. I had architectural, mechanical drawings, renderings, things of that nature. So even my portfolio had range. But then when you go there, my major at the time was architecture. I switched it to fashion. But even having that major, they encourage you to explore at the school. So anything from fashion, fiber, sculpting, painting, mixing, mastering, photography.
Really?
All that. Right? So you take that as SCAD mixed with having to learn things on my own.
That's crazy.
Isn't that wild? So I would say where I'm at right now, still doing storytelling. For those who don't know me, full-time filmmaker, storyteller. I'm fortunate to go around the world Ghana, Guatemala, Malta, Italy, France. I covered the Venezuelan food crisis. I'm working with an organization that does anti-human trafficking, bonded labor against sex trafficking. And just fortunate, honestly.
That's super dope, man. Like you cause like, and you also serve in a bit of a spiritual capacity. Cause I mean, I know me personally, like, you know, any given time at Reach, I know you're one of your offices, you work out of the Reach building doing the in the film unit you and Ben and Lecrae have, but I mean, on any given moment at the lunch table, we can go into a full hour theological conversation, which is good because I think for some people they feel like whatever reason they think of Reach Records, they think of the climate here, and they just for some people they have forgotten the spiritual fiber that this place walks in, which I think is good, just to have an ecosystem where we can just pop into like random theological conversations. Talk about the role you play like a spiritual leader, your thoughts on spiritual formation in the church and how artists should lean into that and what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because at that time when hip hop, what Christ-centered message was formulating, they had a prevalent voice. Yeah, I would say stronger than the pastor at that time.
And hold on, who had
reaching artists, reaching set artists. So you say Reach Records, Cross Movement, you know,
more than the lead pastors.
More than lead pastors.
The influence.
Yeah, very influential. So I think going back to that time and even now, I think that's why the discipleship was so ramped up and the scriptures were so ramped up, because their thinking was, if a kid only interacts with this song for 4 minutes and they never go to the church, what can I give them?
That was the mindset, yeah.
That was the mindset, right? So very sincere. So from my standpoint, it's always, how can we drill down into what God is saying? How can we tap into be led by the Holy Spirit? And how can we journey with people where they are? So I started pastoring. You brought that up. I started pastoring amidst all the other things.
I know. It's all meant the many things you do.
When I was 17 years old, right? So been doing that over 20 years. I still pastor a house church now. Different staffs, et cetera, right. Plants, replants, things like that. And so the focus has always been, okay, what is God saying? But I want to see what God is saying around the world, not just from a subcultural standpoint. So I've been fortunate to go to over 30 countries. And
dang, your passport is just
crazy,
lit, bro.
All the stamps.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, what value do you feel like, especially in culture, do you bring, like having a spiritual discipline and being a leader? How does that grounding influence the art you make, the films you direct, the culture that you walk in and exist? Like, what is, because sometimes people may see the surface of who you are or what you've touched. Yeah. And I don't know, some people may try to discount the faith for whatever reason. What role has that played in your life, man?
That's a good question. You know what? For those like listening and viewing, I would actually flip it. I would say people who are really close to God should be the most creative. Because if you believe, I'm just saying, if you foundationally believe that God created this beautiful creation, we're not even talking about Christ, gospel, anything. If you believe God created this universe, if you traveled to Greece and seen the blue on the Aegean Sea, right? If you've seen sunsets in Sicily, if you tasted certain foods in Palestine and kicked it with those people groups, if you've seen certain animals on the Sahara and at the San Diego Wildlife Park, you like, God is snapping out here.
That's good, bro.
So if I'm tapped into God, think about that. If I'm tapped into God from a creative standpoint, I should be creating crazy stuff.
Gotcha.
But people invert it. They're like, oh man, you so tapped into God, you boring. That shouldn't be the case. That should be offensive if somebody calls you boring and you tapped into God.
That's good.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
So I definitely agree with you. And I don't know if maybe as creatives, if we're taking our proximity to the Father as serious as we could in the art we're creating, maybe we would make better art.
Come on. Listen, my fashion teacher in undergrad, she always said, a true artist should never be worried about losing creativity. And I said, why? And she said, because one, you're the soul of where the creativity comes from, and you're an extension from the creator who's giving you that creativity.
That's dope.
Now she's from Japan. She cold fashion designer. And when she gave me that,
that's fire, bro.
Come on,
that's
bro.
super, man. Yeah, I think it's just dope that, you know, artists creating centered in Christ, just having a healthy view of the greatest creator of all time. It should lead us to make better art, better creations. But tell us why that is so important as a witness to the world. Like, and what are some of your, like, you know, not critiques, but some of your challenges to culture, artists?
Yeah.
What is some of, like, things you can say we could do better of?
Yeah.
And behold that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a great question. I would challenge artists who are seeking to walk up their faith. I think they go to what I would say metaphorically Egypt or Rome before they go to God. That's one.
What can you say what that means more?
Yeah. So if you look in the scriptures, one of the main stories that the Israelites were under the Egyptian rule, but at that time, Egypt was the strongest power.
Right.
Right. So they had all the gold, the spices. They looked good. They were forward thinking, all these things. So by default, the Israelites, even when God took them out with Moses, they're like, man, it's Egypt. Egypt has all the answers. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think artists can get so enthralled with the mainstream culture. Who's co-signing them? Who's affirming them?
Ooh, hold on. You preaching right now, brother. You snapping right now.
Right. Who's affirming them to where they're starting to create art for Egypt and not art from God, for God, and I actually think it will supersede what Egypt is doing, and Egypt actually will praise it. So I'm saying you're actually missing the goal by trying to do what Egypt's doing.
So you're saying artists are, there's a box, there's a worldly box, a mainstream, maybe a pop culture box?
Pop culture box, yeah.
And they just can't see outside that box.
They can't see outside of it because they're so concerned with what the masses are saying. Like comments, I got to make art for you, but think of let's just talk hip hop real quick.
For sure, let's go there.
Right, my personal GOAT is Andre 3000, rapper wise.
I mean, we're on the same page.
But my cultural, I got to give it to him based on what he did, is Jay-Z.
We're on the same page.
Yeah. So when you
don't come for us, y'all fans, y'all be crazy. Y'all be, oh my gosh. Okay, go ahead.
But I only use that to say is because, so when you look at most artists, we go. You know, Jay-Z, Lauryn Hill, hell, well, you could throw out Lauren Daigle or Lainey Wilson, who's a country artist, Chris Stapleton, Justin Timberlake. Like, the range is there, right? So I listen to music. Most artists' best albums are either one or two, just from a soul standpoint. Right. Because when they were creating, guess what they weren't thinking of? The crowd.
They weren't thinking about the crowd. I mean, maybe they were, but it wasn't driving the creativity.
It wasn't driving the like, if you think of some of those formidable albums with Jay-Z, he like when an artist really writes on that first, they like, man, I'm trying to get my story out. Y'all just need to hear my story. Nah, man, I need to hear my story. Is it a hit? Is it radio? How many streams are at that time? How many singles or gold, platinum, diamond is? They're like, no, you just need to hear my story. That's
so good. I think I'm just processing how, you know, because in the first segment we talked about how the best things, even this, what was built through the 116 movie wasn't man-made. And now you're talking about how your upbringing led you to kind of like dabble in so many different things, from fashion to art. And then with all that history and perspective, you're giving a nugget for artists and basically encouraging them to not be so man-made.
Be so man-made.
To maybe look outside of the fray of like pop culture. Maybe get outside of Egypt and let that drive thoughts and ideas that wouldn't have been thought of if you stayed in the box.
If you stayed in clone. Like this one movie, they cloned Tyrone. Their whole premise is if everybody's looking at the same thing, you're going to produce the same thing. You're going to wear the same thing.
That's good.
But you're going to be deluded into thinking you're original. So Look, I didn't come from money. So when you hear me say like, hey, I've been to over 30 countries, that is God's blessing. But the reason I travel, one, it makes me a better person, but two, it keeps me out. And I remember Maxwell said this, R&B singer. He said, they're like, man, why didn't you release an album after your first hit? And he said, because I had nothing to say. I needed to go live life.
That's fair.
To have something to say. And that's all I'm saying is when you look at most artists' first, second albums, they had something to say. And then they get into the culture. Well, I got to follow it up. And I got to, what is so-and-so saying? How is their cadence? How is their...
I feel you, man.
And sometimes it sounds good, but it doesn't hit.
Look, man, art and commerce are just fighting right now. They
are.
Right now, art is in the lead right now. AT's bringing the art bag and the art punches, but we're going to definitely keep this convo going. This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris, having a great conversation with my man.
AT.
Tap in soon, y'all. This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris. I'm smiling because me and AT had an amazing conversation offline that we got to bring to y'all right now.
Yeah.
I was saying how art and commerce are fighting each other.
Yeah.
And how you need both.
Yeah.
And as Christians, you need both. You need art and commerce, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you asked me earlier, and I'm definitely more, depending on what day and who I'm around, I can be either or. I'm a chameleon, but I would say I'm more of a hybrid.
Yeah.
And what about you? I mean, where on the pendulum would you sit?
People who know me would say I'm more of the artist side.
I would agree.
But like Outkast say, baby gotta eat.
Oh, baby gotta eat. If you don't move your feet, then we don't eat. Then we like check the check. Boy, talk. I mean, so I feel like I sit squarely in the hybrid.
That's good.
Similarly to Lecrae's a hybrid.
Yeah, no, he's a hybrid.
I think Jay-Z's a hybrid.
Yeah, Jay-Z's
So,
a hybrid.
and I was saying to you how Lecrae and like Lecrae's influence with the artistic side of artists.
Yeah.
If Lecrae wasn't good at rapping, he wouldn't have the influence.
No, he wouldn't.
To like influence of What Up RG or Andy Medio. Because you got to respect Lecrae's. You got to. That boy, he don't play about that. Yeah. And on the same time, he could sit at board meetings and sell you why this song isn't good for certain data reasons. So
let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
What about the Vanilla Ice type argument to where Vanilla Ice sold, but a lot of people not respecting it, or people will go to franchise? Like fast food sells, but it's not the food it's not the food people would buy if they had the money to buy.
Ooh, so this is where faith, culture, life is just on a collision course. So I would say, the Vanilla Ice thing is a function of commerce leading the decision.
Okay. So you see that
art is not being in the conversation as long. I would say McDonald's maybe started as both. Yeah, they did. Out of the pureness of Ray Kroc, heart. Yeah. But commerce has taken the reins of McDonald's and shareholders, board of directors. I would say a better example would be Chick-fil-A, where I feel like art and commerce are in the room and they fighting every day. Now, any given day, art wins. Yeah. And commerce, I think Reach Records has some of that. Yeah. I would argue that maybe a TDE maybe leans towards the art side, but they've had such mega success with pure art where the commerce side can't say much.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you a question on that. Yeah. Because I think that's good. I believe TDE, I would argue TDE has success because of the art side, but Outlier Moment, they were a disruptor to the, let's just say, the drab data songs that were being do you see what I'm saying?
No, for sure.
So where does disruption for you in the art, commerce?
This is man, you killing me right now. All right, so as someone who's an A&R, and you know this, we both like, multi-platinum records, Grammy award-winning production. Yeah. A&R, I read skip rate data. Yeah. And I also sit in studios and hear an artist's not so best song, and I encourage them to make a better song. Yeah. Data is a tool that everybody in this climate and culture, we have so much information. We're in the information age. Yeah. Data is a great tool to see what is happening and to predict what could happen. Yeah. And like this A&R KP said on the podcast, however, if you're only looking at data, you're only going to be able to predict what was. You can't catch what it doesn't exist.
Talk to me nice.
So
bro.
this is where faith, if we're talking about spiritual, the 116 life, being like, faith has to be a big component in creative companies because you have to be able to grab what isn't on the data sheet and
that's what
almost like pull it into existence.
Yes.
And that is where my art side, being here, there's things that I've put my hands to, that didn't make sense on the data sheet.
Okay.
But I went and fought for it out of the feeling of my heart. And I think God would inspire that. And so
hence the hybrid.
that's the so I think, to your point, data is good to inform what was, but it can't be the only conversation in the room. You have to be able to feel something.
Yeah, you got to.
And like you said, the artist, like that teacher at SCAD, you have to be able to feel something.
Like I get y'all shout out, or y'all / artist RG.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorite artists because yes, he's tapped into the culture. Yes, I do believe he listens to y'all on the data. But New Hollywood was a disruptor, bro.
Come on.
It was like when I listen, I go, I believe this kid. And even Heaven on Earth, I go, I believe. And I remember hitting Ben and Lecrae. I was like, y'all, you got to understand, this kid believes that what's in heaven can happen on earth. Don't take that away.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Good. That's good. I mean, art needs commerce. I mean, the early church funded a lot of Michelangelo's paint. The commercial sustainability of the church structure funded creativity. So you need both.
Yeah.
And I think I just try to like think about the fight. There's going to be days where commerce is winning too much. You got to like, now art got to come through and knock this decision out. As long as we're balancing or it's not even balance. I think it's more of as long as you're wrestling with the tension and not letting art get too far or commerce get too far. So speaking of RG, you recently went to Guatemala on a trip with RG was there, right?
RG was there.
And Lecrae.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what that trip was about and also the additional work you do. In the justice work that you do.
Yeah. So one of my family visions comes out of Job, where Job says he was eyes to the blind, feet to the lame. He breaks the fangs of the wicked and makes them drop the prey from his teeth. This is what he said to God when he was going through his issue. And what I like about that is that meant Job was proactive.
That's good.
Right? He said he searched out the cause of him who he did not know. So he is searching. He goes, I have so much, there has to be people who are oppressed. So one of the things I live by, I'm 6'5", I didn't choose that. Able body, I didn't choose that. Strong immune system, all these things, I didn't choose that. God gave that to me.
Right.
God, you want me to use that in some way, shape, or form. I was born in America. I didn't choose that. I was born, in the time that I'm born. God didn't give me that. Right?
That's true.
I mean, God gave me that. I didn't choose that. So I say all that to say is, so we went to Guatemala and an organization called International Justice Mission. They do anti-sex trafficking work, anti-human labor, bonded labor, and violence against women and children. And Guatemala in Central America is the second most dangerous place for women to live. You're talking about women who get burned alive, fingernails pulled. Like they have this thing called machismo culture to where women are less than an object. And if you don't submit, your life is invaluable. Right? So we went with International Justice Mission to tap into how can we partner with International Justice Mission and other organizations, because they would call it femicide. You heard of infanticide, genocide. It's femicide. It's where you're just killing women by the numbers. 1 in 3, I was told, 1 in 3 females get assaulted sexually or violently by the age of 30. That came out to roughly, the numbers I did, roughly 200 million if you take in all of those numbers in Guatemala and Central America. So it's a problem.
That's
right?
Crazy.
And so I just wanted Lecrae, RG, D to tap in. We had another guy named Alexander. He went as well to tap in to see like, hey, we are fortunate and we can bring partnership, whether it's with our platform, voice, storytelling, that needs to be told to kind of, create some justice that's due people that they're not getting.
Yeah, I mean that is, shout out the work you do, man. That's in our Western world of comfort and privilege and prestige, it's easy, especially in the church, to just forget that the suffering, that the level of suffering that goes on in other places.
Level, that's a good way to say it.
Because it's suffering. I mean, we on Northside Drive. I can go down the street to Vine City, and it's some missions done over there, which is actually being done.
Yeah.
But I guess, it's just the fact that you guys are doing that kind of work. And what led you to want to do like that intentional work? I mean, I didn't talk about your family mission, but why is it important for like specifically artists to think about that?
Yeah.
Tying it back to the mission work that was at the forefront of Reach Records and the early stages that you were in. Why is it important to make that like RG being there? Why is that so important?
Yeah, I think people need to understand that icons in the culture, they move the needle. Good, bad, up, down. So
that's real.
And then at the same time, those same artists can become insulated to where you're not talking about anything. And when you don't talk about anything, guess what the culture starts to live for? Nothing.
Is that maybe that's happening right now?
It is. Like it's
maybe that's what's going on. But hip hop is in a weird space right now.
Very weird.
I mean, there's no voice right now, bro.
There's no voice. You know what's wild? I'll tell you what's wild.
What's up?
There's a place here called Adventure Outdoors. You know, go get, Adventure Outdoors?
Yeah,
it's like ammo corn.
I've been over there. My boy took me like a year ago.
Bro, now I checked. I went and checked his socials. On Instagram, I think 21 Savage has like 17 million, 16.5, 17 million followers. Where I went up in there, he by himself. Nobody talking to this.
And Marietta, like on
and I was just like, isn't this crazy? We kill ourselves to be seen. This brother got hits. I just saw he did a show with Drake, and he's in there by himself, just putting his stuff in the shopping basket. and it made me think of Solomon, to where it's like, man, we kill ourselves for certain things, and then we go on the ground, and he says it won't be remembered.
It's all vain, all counted as vain.
Yeah, it's a chasing of the wind.
Yeah.
And so me and RG was talking about that in Guatemala, not this 21 Savage thing, but we were talking about this in Guatemala, and he's like, man, this stuff is just hitting me. It's blowing me up. He said, because he's like, I could see that you can just make hits that don't go nowhere. And he said, that's not what I want to be.
Impact.
Think about that. He said, you can make hits that don't go anywhere.
I was about to say
hits.
I know. I mean,
we are.
We making commerce. We're making money. It's music is being consumed, but you feel like it's not.
Everybody eating.
Yeah.
And he's just like, man, I just feel like my life is supposed to have an impact for people that are in situations. Like even in Guatemala, bro, they just got certain laws on the books for women 17 years ago.
Wow.
That's recent, bro.
Yeah, that's recent. You have like your daughters. I mean, she's not even 17 yet.
Come on, man.
That's like yesterday, So I mean, it makes me think like, and everything we're building, especially with like culture not having a voice.
Yeah.
People like you leading the charge with other artists to go out and just make a difference. It's good that we're reminded that, because I feel like even here at Reach, like it's easy to drift.
Yeah.
To the commerce side so casually and lose mission.
Yeah.
Lose focus. Why AT do you feel like your voice in this building is important and in culture at large? Why is Adam Thomason sitting on this couch right now?
Yeah. I think God has given me the ability to fly in rare air
that's good.
with people and not be impressed like other people are. And they appreciate that. They appreciate that I see them as human, that I see them as a husband, a dad, someone who's raising kids, someone who needs prayers. I think they really appreciate that. They appreciate that I'm willing to take the journey, that they don't need to get to a destination to be loved, that I will love them despite what they're going through, despite the mental health or despite maybe saying the wrong thing and not knowing about Black Lives Matter. They go, I know Adam is going to journey with me.
Right.
And if I come to the revelation, he's still going to be there. If I don't, he's still going to be there. And I feel like that's what it means to actually live like Christ. If Christ knew all things, which he did, yet he is able to love people at the point of where they were and not shame them from not being at it. I believe that's why I'm sitting on this couch, because that's hard to find, especially when you get successful, you have power, that's hard to find. An individual's like, man, I don't want anything for you but for you to be a healthy human that God created in his image and to feel love despite what you do.
Man, that's amazing. I think we need more perspectives out there like that. And it's been really good having you share your journey, your story, and your perspective and advice for me and for anybody in this building and people tuning in, just to embody what it means to be unashamed of the gospel. Like literally to be unashamed, it's a walk, it's a calling. And it's good to have people flying in rare air, just to make sure the atmosphere is of the right residue.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, man. Where can people find you, man? Anything you want to share? Anything you working on, or any like final? I know you're naturally kind of very humble. You don't like talking about yourself, but anything that you're working on, people need to know about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier, Lecrae, myself, and Ben, we started a production company, 3 Strand Films. And that's storytelling centered around vice and virtues in an honest perspective, right? So you got 3 Strand Films, working on documentaries from Venezuela, Guatemala, India, just stories that need to be told. And Lord willing, y'all be praying for this. Lord willing, there's supposed to be a feature film, docu-film asset that I've been working on. And for the 116 Unashamed movement.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's been a long time coming.
It's way overdue. Man, I appreciate you, Adam, man.
Yeah,
that's it. This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris, with my man
AT.
Catch y'all next time. Let's get it.